Hi, I'm Naomi. I'm the Head of Public Affairs at the British Humanist Association, and want to say thank you very much for inviting me along to speak at your AGM. I haven't actually spoken at the Central London Humanists before, although I know we at BHA have very close links with the group, so I'm really pleased to come here, and I know some of you, but certainly not everybody. I realise we're sort of overrunning a little bit, so I'm going to try to speak fairly, not gone for too long. But I was given a pretty broad remit for this evening, being told I could talk about anything I like. And rather than take it too off topic, I thought I would focus on the BHA and our campaigns, and in particular our major campaign at the moment, which is the Census Campaign, which you raised earlier, so I will actually be speaking in detail about that. And I don't sort of want to go over too much stuff that you already know, but as I haven't spoken to you before, I don't know what you know, so I'm just going to carry on. Following my talk, of course, I'll be really happy to take questions and have a discussion if anyone wants to. The last 4 years have seen an unprecedented expansion at the BHA in terms of our work, in terms of our reach, and also in terms of our staffing. And it was all changed at the beginning of last year, particularly when we got a new chief executive, Andrew Copson, who I'm sure many of you know, and a change in role for me to Head of Public Affairs. I was previous to that for 3 years the Public Affairs Officer. I manage all of the BHA's campaigns. I also work on our policy development. I work with the media, with politicians, and with our supporters on our work, on our wide range of work. I liaise with the Humanist Philosophers Group and also with Lawyers for Humanism on campaigns issues to get their kind of perspective on our campaigns and to support them and to help with our policy and so on. And I'm also a media spokesperson for the BHA. And for the last 3 years I've also administered the all-party parliamentary humanist group. So I work very closely with a number of MPs and peers on our kind of issues as they are interested in them. I'm also a director of the European Humanist Federation, and I also sit on various steering groups for other organisations where the BHA has an interest, for example, and including the Cutting Edge Consortium, which brings together religious and non-religious organisations and groups working for LGBT equality across religions, really, and the Accord Coalition for Inclusive Schools, and I also sit on the steering group for the HERE, which is a London-based equality network. And I think we're the only religion or belief, on religion belief strand, we're the only belief group represented there, so it's actually quite important for us to be there. No religious groups are, in fact, on that equality network, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I manage the campaigns team as well, including the dedicated Faith Schools and Education Officer campaigner, a post which is funded entirely from public donations. We've been really successful in raising funds only from public donations for the last, I think we're now in our 4th year, 3 to 4 years, and I think that's a sign of the kind of really wide support that we have for our work. So that's briefly what I do and where I sort of sit in the organisation. But why do we campaign, and what are our aims in campaigning? Well, we are hoping to raise awareness of the BHA and of humanism more generally, particularly among opinion formers. And as part of the wider BHA's aims, we want to increase our membership and support through becoming more well known. And we're hoping to effect real changes in terms of policy and legislation, right from the stages of initial consultation, right through to amendments to bills in Parliament and later. To do that, we need to be recognised by government as a key stakeholder in the debate, and whether that's on issues relating to faith schools, right through to public ethical issues such as stem cell research. Our campaigns are vital to enable that recognition and status. And ultimately, we campaign to fulfil our aims of creating a more just and more open society based on principles of secularism, equality and rights, and of course to promote humanism. So what kind of campaigns do we run? Well, all our campaigning starts from a clear, well-researched policy base. And we try to vary the kinds of campaigns that we do and the lengths of those campaigns. There are fixed-term campaigns, such as the APS bus and the billboard campaigns, or indeed the Census Campaign, which I'll go on to. And those are ones which are focused just on, say, one piece of legislation. And there are those with either shorter or longer term objectives. Some of our objectives go on for the next few decades in terms of sort of changing education and so on, but we are committed to those as well as the short-term ones. And we do campaign in different ways. For example, we campaign politically, and we now have a presence at the annual political party conferences every year, as well as other politically focused events throughout the year. And we have, for example, greatly increased member involvement in all our campaigns, and increasingly work at both national and local levels, either alone or with other organisations or in conjunction with local groups and so on. Our parliamentary work, for which I've been responsible for the past couple of years or so, is also an exceptionally important part of achieving our campaigning aims, and that's part of the reason why we have a really wonderful and very large parliamentary humanist group. And we are increasingly interested also in pursuing more media focus and more public campaigns. Again, this is the kind of thing we're trying out with the Census Campaign, which I'm now going to go on to. Our campaign on the census, which we've called the Census Campaign, is a new type of campaign for us. We're trying out new things. We're targeting different audiences to what we've done previously, and it's really exciting to be working on it. We have a clear aim in the Census Campaign, and that is to have as many people as possible to tick the no religion box when they get their census forms from the 27th of March this year. I'll start with a bit of background about our work in terms of the census itself, and then I'll talk about what's happening now and how you can get involved as well. The last census was taken in 2001, and for the first time it included a question on religion. It was before my time at the BHA, but I'm pretty sure that we opposed having a question on religion at all. Measuring religion, or indeed non-religious beliefs, is notoriously difficult. Not only are there issues of privacy involved, as there are for other identities such as sexual orientation, which is not going to be on the census form, but trying to capture data on religion which is in any way meaningful is really hard. What are you trying to measure? Are you trying to measure practice, attendance at worship, or active prayer? Or are you trying to measure belief in a deity? Or are you trying to measure how much a person lived their lives according to the tenets of a particular religion? Or are you trying to measure a sense of belonging to a particular community, or a sense of cultural identity? Different surveys try to measure all sorts of different aspects of religion, like I've outlined, and belief. And some do this more successfully than others. The British Social Attitudes Survey is a very large, wide household survey, a very well-respected survey, and they ask a reflective question. They say, do you consider yourself as belonging to any particular religion? The most recent results from that show for the first time that a majority of people responded, just 50.7%, said no. And we can take that from the expert analysis of that as a measure of no religion in the population. Brilliant. But the census is quite different. It asks, what is your religion? And we worked for a number of years to have the question changed. Unfortunately, despite agreeing with many of our criticisms about the question and the data it produces, the Office for National Statistics chose to repeat the question again for the next census in March. The question, what is your religion, presupposes that somebody has a religion. It does not presuppose that somebody is not religious or has non-religious beliefs. In fact, the question is deliberately designed to be leading in order to capture the weakest possible cultural affiliation to religion. So the census attempts to, and in fact succeeds to an extent, capture as religious, and especially as Christian, all those people who have been baptised but have never stepped foot in a church since, or who don't believe in God but went to Sunday school as children, or who celebrate Christmas, buy Easter eggs, or who occasionally attend midnight mass after the pub with their friends. In fact, the question is not just leading, it is especially positioned in the census paper with ethnicity, language and nationality, so that people associate with religion with those other factors. So in other words, people are strongly encouraged to say, when they look at the form, I'm white, British, and I'm Christian, or whichever, but there's going to be something religious affiliation there. And even though it's actually a voluntary question, most people answer it. And in 2001, the census found that the vast majority of people in this country, in England and Wales, that we're talking about, had a religion. It's quite clear that 72% of the population are not practicing, believing Christians, as the census data from 2001 might suggest. And that it is also obvious that there are more than 15% of the population who are not religious. Those figures are not replicated in any other significant social survey at all, nowhere near. But if it's just measuring vague cultural affiliation, why does it matter? Well, surely we can just point to other surveys and say, here is more accurate data, such as the data collected on church attendance, which is at an all-time low this year after declining year on year. And in fact, across all religions, only a tiny minority of the population ever attend a church, mosque, temple or synagogue with any sort of regularity. However, it does matter, and it matters for a number of reasons. First, these are national statistics. They are widely used, and especially by government departments, local authorities, and so on. Second, it is not obvious to those using the data on religion that it measures weak cultural affiliation, that what it is measuring is not meaningful in terms of measuring religion. The data does not come accompanied with a health warning, saying that it doesn't measure practice or belief. Third, the data which gives the impression that this really is a Christian country, rather than one that is characterised by its diversity and its increasingly non-religious population, is used by people to justify distinctly anti-secular and anti-secularist things, like keeping reserved seats for bishops in the House of Lords, increasing the number of state-funded faith schools, or having government communities policies which only focus on faith, often to the detriment and exclusion of others. Four, policymakers, politicians, and those in control of the public purse nationally and locally all use the census data on religion to inform policy, action, and to determine resource allocation. Under the new Equality Act, local authorities will also be using the data to inform all sorts of decisions, including those on funding. It is not only the non-religious who will be affected by discriminatory and divisive policies and public services, having themselves been largely excluded from the national picture by the data, but all of us. So, despite the Office for National Statistics admitting that the census question on religion, what is your religion, is a leading question designed to capture the weakest possible cultural and religious affiliation, it still recommended the question's inclusion in 2001. Why? Although it might seem strange, it certainly seems strange to us when we were looking at this, part of the reason for using the question that measures the weakest possible affiliation was in order to capture the large proportion of non-religious people who may consider that they are Jewish or Sikh by ethnicity and are seen in law under the Race Relations Act or since the Race Relations Act, but not by religion. In fact, the Office for National Statistics states that the religion question does this so well it is a reasonable proxy for an ethnicity question. It is a feature of this country that within the Jewish and Sikh populations they are significantly secular. They are, unlike other religious groups, for example, there are lots of Jewish people who might think they are ethnically Jewish, or Sikh people who think they are ethnically Sikh, but aren't religious. And as I said, they are in fact protected under race relations legislation. In fact, the Sikh Council for the UK last year threatened to take the Office for National Statistics to court because they are not, Sikh isn't under the ethnicity category, and they think it should be because that's where it is in law. And they think that lots of Sikhs won't take the religion question because they don't consider themselves religious, but should take an ethnicity question. And actually, unfortunately, that legal challenge didn't go any further than that. and they're actually encouraging the Sikhs not to answer the question at all, which is interesting. But from our perspective, not losing the proportionately large secular Jewish and Sikh populations in statistics might help the government meet its duties in terms of monitoring race equality, one of the reasons given by the ONS. It won't, of course, help local authorities in meeting the needs of local populations, though. They might use the figures, for example, to designate kosher meals and wheels, or to contract out to a Jewish organisation to provide kosher meals and wheels, thinking that they have a certain number of Jewish people in the local community. This is the kind of thing that this demographic data is used for. If most of that population is secular and North Orthodox, i.e. not kosher, it's hardly well-targeted policy. But more importantly than that, losing millions of non-religious people by encouraging them to tick the Christian box, even if they have never been to a church or don't believe in a God, has serious consequences, not least for equality issues. And moreover, it is the greatly inflated figure for Christian, boosted, we think, by a large proportion of people who are actually not religious, ticking the Christian box last time, that has a particularly negative impact on non-religious people and for the fight for secularism more generally. It may be obvious to us that there should be no connection between the religious or non-religious beliefs in the population in terms of what public policy should look like. There should be a separation of church and state, and law should treat people equally regardless of belief. However, in reality, the presumed religiosity of the population, because of the misleading data in part from the census, is used by many to make public policy with a distinctly religious flavour. This is where we get back to 72% of the population are Christians, and therefore we must have faith schools, even though obviously we know that lots of Christians don't like faith schools anyway. So what now? Well, I've given some context and background to the Census Campaign, and if you're fascinated and want to know more, there is a wealth of information on our website about this, including our lengthy, detailed submissions to select committees, details of meetings and correspondence with the Office for National Statistics, and all sorts of evidence to support our position. But it is too late to change the question now, and it's too late to get rid of it altogether. So what can we do? Under the banner of, if you're not religious, for God's sake, say so, the Census Campaign seeks to raise awareness of the dangers and the real damage that can be done by the non-religious population not being accurately recorded in the census. This may also be the last ever census, quite likely to be the last ever census, so it's especially important that people do not consider themselves to be religious make 2011 the year to stand up and be counted. We're now running our campaign to get as many people as possible involved, talking about, blogging about, tweeting about, leafleting about how important it is to take no religion this year. As I mentioned, we've not run a campaign quite like this before, and we really hope as many of our members, supporters and affiliated groups want to get involved with it. We've got three main targets for our campaign. One, all of those people who tick Christian out of habit but do not, if they really thought about it, actually consider themselves to be religious. We are not, and this is actually important, trying to tell people who do consider themselves to be religious, even if they consider themselves very sort of culturally religious, to tick the no religion box. We're not actually telling people to do anything. What we are trying to do is encourage people to think about what they believe and also to think about the consequences of what happens when huge amounts of people tick a religion box that doesn't really match their own beliefs. Do we really want, for example, lots of money diverted to Christian-only service providers? And similarly, we hope that secular members of other religious groups, such as the Jewish or Sikh communities, will be encouraged to think about their own beliefs as well. 2, all those people who are openly non-religious but did not respond last time. We know it's not a great question. We know that people have different reasons for choosing not to respond to it. But as I said, this is possibly the last time there will be a census, and we can't afford to have another 10 years at least of bad stats being used decisively against us again and again. For us, we want an accurate an as accurate picture as possible. And that means that non-religious people really need to answer the question. 3. Humanists, atheists, skeptics, Jedis, rationalists, geeks, nerds, agnostics, Superman, all the kinds of people who ticked the other box and filled it in 2001. Many of these would actually have been counted as non-religious, or as having no religion, or none as it was in the last census, but not all of them. We know that some of our members will feel strongly about writing in humanist, for example, as that accurately reflects their own beliefs, and it is their belief. And we're not going to criticise people for doing that, not least as they'll probably still be counted as no religion, in fact they will be. But we think that it is possible in more detailed analysis of the data, writing in humanist, for example, or atheist, may actually damage our argument, as realistically only a very few people, it was only a few thousand in the last census, will write it in. It isn't a religion after all. It might make it look, if people choose to do this kind of analysis, and we certainly know people who don't like us very much do, might make it look that, like there are only a few thousand humanists, when we know that actually obviously broadly millions of people have broadly humanist beliefs in the UK, but don't use the word. From our perspective, it is best just to tick the no religion box. So how are we going about rolling out this campaign? Well, in October, which was on the 27th, so exactly 5 months before the census takes place, we launched the campaign's official website at www.census-campaign.org.uk. It's actually a really great website because it's really interactive. It gives clear and easy read, frequently asked questions about our aims and the background of the campaign in a much shorter way than I've explained tonight. It has loads of ways people can get involved. One thing people can do is go online and take the pledge to tick no religion, and you can also leave a message saying why you're going to do it to encourage other people to. There is a Twitter wall which shows all the mentions of the campaign on Twitter. There are also links to the campaign's Facebook page, ways to get a twibbon in support of the campaign for your own Twitter profile. If you're not on Twitter, it won't make any sense to you, but if you are, this little banner which says I support the Census Campaign. And there's a blog also to keep people up to date with what's happening, what people are saying in the media, and we'll certainly blog about any activities by local groups or members or things that are happening around the country, and we really want to do this. We can do this on a daily basis if we need to, really get that going. For people who want to get involved, there are downloadable materials like posters, or there are template letters for people to send to their local press. That's just straight on the site, you can just go there and download it. And we'll also be building on those materials over the next few months. There is, of course, a link to a Just Giving page, a donation page, so people can donate to the campaign. And what will happen to this money? Well, we're going to be doing some advertising nearer the time of the census, so the message is really out there. We aren't just preaching to the converted. We absolutely need to reach people who may never have heard of us before, or who have never thought about what they might fill on the census when they get it through their door. So we'll look at doing things, big billboards with our slogan, but we're also going to trial other things like Facebook advertising, Google advertising, those sorts of things, where we can really tailor and target our market. And all sorts of other things, but of course it depends on how much money we raise. And we're thinking about spending some of the money printing thousands of leaflets and encouraging supporters and groups to do some big leaflet drops. For those of you who are politically active, it will be a good warm-up before May, so do let us know if that's something that CLHD would be interested in perhaps organising. But these are just some ideas. We're absolutely looking for some more suggestions and help. We now have a dedicated campaign coordinator called Lizzie, who is working under me, and who will certainly be in touch with you soon if she hasn't been already. She's working for us full-time on this, so she's absolutely dedicated just to getting the message out there. And she's also there to support and assist and encourage you to take part in the campaign. That might be through having enough information to chat about to your friends, to writing a blog, to supporting the campaign through social media, to holding a public event, to leafleting, or having a poster in your window, or whatever. As I said, we want as many people as possible to tick the no religion box. We've got a couple of months to achieve that aim. So we really need to do as much. We really do need as much involvement from you and other groups as possible. Thank you.